Hi guys, right? And hi Instagram people. It's nice having all of you guys back again. And today we have Sandra Biopos.
That's me.
Yes. So Sandra, she actually learned to code at Next Academy, and she has a very interesting background. For all of you guys who are really interested in coding or whatnot, I think you'll find her background very interesting. So Sandra, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I actually started out with no coding experience whatsoever. I had never done anything to do with tech, which is very strange considering both my parents actually did computer science.
Oh, okay, really?
In uni, yeah. I was the least technical out of everyone in my family, and I did law at university, and but it became quite apparent very quickly that it was not the path for me. It was definitely not something I wanted to continue with, and so I worked in a law firm for 4 years, much to my embarrassment, even though I said I was going to change my jobs, I was going to do something interesting. But it took me a while to actually, work up the courage to quit and to join tech. So
that's nice. So actually, I guess even though you are not so tech, you call yourself tech savvy or whatnot, well, you are actually having your parents' blood flowing into you, because both of them are like from computer science.
Yeah.
You did law, and then you came back to your actual calling.
Came back to my roots.
Yeah, came back to your roots as well. So I guess it's very interesting because a lot of people were just wondering how is it like transitioning from something that is non-tech, right, to tech. Like your background as a lawyer, and then with no IT background and becoming getting into coding and whatnot.
Yeah.
So how has that journey been? Like, is it easy? Is it tough? How is it like?
It was definitely a challenge that I needed, because at some point I think you become very used to monotony or to routine that you don't really step out of your comfort zone very often.
Yeah.
So coding for me was two things. It was a way to change my career,
Mm-hmm.
and it was also something to challenge myself,
Mm-hmm.
to do something new. And they all say that doing something new, it changes your brain, it helps you think in a different way, and that was definitely something that I wanted to do. So it has definitely been a challenge because I had no coding experience whatsoever. I was very lost in the beginning. I was frantic some days because I was like, why am I not making this work? But when you have the right attitude towards something, when you really try and push yourself forward, and you're surrounded with like-minded people as well who are extremely supportive of what you're doing and who are in the same boat as you, then it becomes something that you learn to enjoy, because you can't just dive into something and immediately enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to get used to first, and you get used to being in that discomfort, and you get used to opening your brain and challenging your brain a bit more, and then it becomes something that you look forward to every day.
Nice. Well, guys, if you guys have any questions you want to ask Sandra, feel free to pop those questions in as well. We have a bunch of questions here already that people ask us throughout the week, right? We will answer them together. But yes, if you have questions, feel free to pop those questions in. And in the meantime, let's just go with this. If you guys share this thing, share this video, and if and we want to have 10 shares,
10 shares.
And Sandra will be giving this away, right, to a lucky winner. I guess a lucky person. Yay!
You want this t-shirt?
Yeah.
That's the coolest.
That's this t-shirt, like eat sleep code. That's pretty much the life away.
It's the last one that we have. Like, it's one-time opportunity.
Yeah. So when you're learning to code at Next Academy, what's one thing that you enjoy the most?
I think the fact that I was learning something new every day, and you could feel yourself like coming out of the whatever routine or monotony that you were in before, and you could see like, oh, every day I'm doing something completely different, and I'm also building on whatever I learned the previous day. And I think that sort of, when you realize that, oh, I'm actually doing this, I'm actually learning a completely new skill, even though it's from scratch, there's a sense of satisfaction in it and you feel a sense of accomplishment as well, because you're like, hey, I did it, you know, I stepped out of my comfort zone. I'm doing something that I never thought I would do, but I'm doing it for myself, and I'm expanding my own horizons as well. And who knows what kind of opportunities it will open up for me. So that was it was a very exciting time for me when I was first studying at Next, because I could really see myself changing. I could see the way I thought of things were changing as well, and the way I approached problems was also changing. So whereas before I would have been like, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what I'm doing, but as you progress in the course, or you know, in whatever you're studying, you slowly start to make these connections, and then you begin to really understand a bit more about what you're learning, and you know, how this can impact your future.
I think what's something that's really interesting that, you know, you just say that it actually changes the way you think, right? It's people always think that, you know, when you come to learn to code, you're just learning one skill, and actually someone actually once came to me, he's like, oh, you know what, it's not just learning a coding skill, it's actually learning a life skill.
Correct.
It changes the way he approached life completely, not just in the coding sense, but really his life completely. He changed the way he solved problems in every part of his life.
So, it does. And I also feel like because you are, for example, if you were someone like me who, you know, came in from a different job, and you might find it frightening, but the very fact that you are doing something different is so important for you, because you're taking certain skills that you already know, and you're applying them, or you're changing them, and you're basically morphing yourself into a completely different person, and you're thinking in ways that you never thought of before. So yeah, I think that's a very, very important thing to do.
Yeah, okay, cool. So let's just get started with some of the questions that people have asked. So as mentioned, guys, if you guys have questions, either on Instagram or on Facebook, please feel free to key in those questions and we will answer them. All right, so first question, so Diana asked, you know, what's the course structure like, and how long, and what's the fees? Okay, Diana, so it depends on which part of the course you actually want to join. So like for Sandra, she joined the 10-week course. The 10 weeks is actually separated into 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 6 weeks, right? So it's 2 to 6, right? And with the 10 weeks course, the first 2 weeks, you actually learn how to do HTML, CSS, JavaScript. With Bootstrap, you learn how to build a website from scratch. You learn how to write algorithms, be exposed to, you know, doing APIs and whatnot. Follow on by the following 2 weeks, which is with React. And it's one of the most popular front-end frameworks out there that can create seamless experience, a seamless website user experience, right? So I think that's quite, like Facebook, for example, a lot of parts of Facebook is actually powered by React, for example. And then the following 6 weeks, you'll be using Python, learning how to use Python, but with the focus on building apps, right? Web applications. So after learning Python, then you will learn how to create an app, the backend. You know, so the front end for the first 2 weeks, first 4 weeks, and the back end together, they become a web app. And from there, after that, you actually put your skills together to build the final project. You should talk about your final project in a bit. Yeah. So you build the final project, and yes, so this whole 10 weeks covers front end, back end, to build with a specialization on building apps, right? But not just that, you will be building a lot of really core foundation. Your fundamentals will be pretty much really strong, because you learn how to code. In the future, what I've seen a lot of the students actually venture into things that are very different from what they've learned here. So after they learn to code and learn how to build apps, they eventually venture into, you know, IoT, AI, machine learning, data science. I've seen people who venture into robotics as well. So I guess when you know how to code, you can do quite a bit of stuff.
Opportunities are endless.
Yeah, you can.
There's so many areas that you can apply your coding skills in.
So there are just so much opportunities. So we have the part-time version as well as the full-time version. So full-time is 10 weeks long, the one that Sandra came along, and then you'll be able to meet like-minded people like Sandra. And for the part-time course, for the part-time course right now, for the For the front end version of it, we have an eight-week program. So if you're working or whatnot, you should actually do come by and join us for the 8-week part-time program, because you don't need to leave your job, but in the meantime, you get to learn how to build apps and get to meet people, and also actually schedule almost like a one-on-one mentorship session with your mentors as well. So I think that's quite a lot of opportunities which you guys should look into. Okay, so let's just move on to the next question, right? You know what? We have actually spoke about this. Akira asked, is it possible for someone without any extensive IT background to join the program? So maybe let's just recap and repeat yourself again.
So it absolutely is. I know that myself, I came from I had absolutely no experience in coding. And I know a lot of my cohort as well didn't have any experience in coding, and they just wanted to they joined for various reasons. It was either because they wanted to make a career change, or because maybe in the future they were going to join a computer science course at university. Some of them were quite young as well. Or because they just want to pick up a new skill and, do something different or do something in their own time. So it definitely is possible for you to join the bootcamp with absolutely no coding experience, because I feel like you really get, from day one, it's intensive, but it's also drilling into you a sense of discipline, learning it so that you can learn how to code outside of Next even. So, you learn all the fundamentals in class, but then you go home and you might have to digest it all, and you might have to Google a lot of things. We Google a lot, so don't be afraid to Google, guys. And so it is a really good place to learn how to learn and how to start, because you do learn the fundamentals in class, and your mentors are always there to help you. So if you feel like maybe you're nervous to try it out, I would just do it, because you won't know whether you're going to enjoy it or whether you have an aptitude for it if you don't try it out.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is that when it's okay for someone who had no IT background or with IT background to join, because we have seen people with IT background or without IT background coming through the doors. And I think one key thing that I see people who becomes really successful or become really good with coding is the attitude that they bring when they come in to learn, right? Be open to learning, as what she has mentioned. One key thing is to not be afraid of failure.
Yeah,
because with one thing, if you are a surgeon, I understand. If you're a surgeon, you cut one wrong thing, that's it, man. Right? But this is programming, right? And honestly, very often it's very normal for us to see bugs, and it's very normal for certain things to not work. When those things happen, don't be paralyzed. In fact, just it's just a computer telling you that, hey Sandra, hey Audrey, something's not working, so it's time to fix it, and that's about it. So I think that attitude of not being afraid of failure, not being afraid of mistakes, right, is very, very important.
I think drawing on from that, in the beginning, I was very scared to make mistakes, and I got extremely frustrated with myself whenever I couldn't figure something out. Because I'm like a perfectionist. It's I need to make things work, and if I don't, it's I'm a failure. Everything's gonna go downhill. But when you're surrounded with like-minded people, always ask your friends. Always ask your friends. If you're too nervous to ask your mentors, which I know some people were in the beginning, we would ask each other and just be like, how do we fix this? How do we do this? I don't know. And that actual process of working together with someone, even if you both don't know how to do it, because you're both going to have different bits of information. One of you might know something or remember something that the other doesn't, and you slowly build up from there. And that whole process is so crucial to your learning and to you getting things to work, or to, figuring things out for yourself. And, you can always ask the mentors. But for me, I found that it was so crucial for me to have that, to be able to speak to my fellow classmates, because I guess there was a sense of comfort that we were both in the same boat. We both didn't know what we were doing, but we managed to make this work anyway.
Yeah, I think and I think one good thing, like just what you said, that both of you have different perspective. So it's actually recommended. We always tell people in class, like, yeah, talk to your mentors, but also talk to your friends as well, because everyone may approach the same problem in very different ways.
Correct.
The way you solve it, the outcome is the same, but all of us could have a different way of solving that, right? And the best part about actually communicating and talking to each other, working together and brainstorming ideas together, is where now you don't just learn one way of doing things, you learn multiple ways of doing things together. So I think that's definitely something, if you're going to be joining a program, you would definitely obviously need to want to work hard, I guess, not be afraid of failure. But the third one is being willing to share your ideas, share your thought process, and being willing to learn from each other. So I think those are very, very core things that we find will help you be successful in learning to code. And what's interesting is that the best coders that I've seen that comes up from Next Academy, a lot of them don't actually have IT background. And that is interesting because people always assume like, oh, you have IT background, this person will be the best. But it turns out that it's not always the case, right? It's not always the case. So guys, if you have no IT background, the first key thing is, start trying and see if you actually love it or not. So I think that is one thing to think about. Okay, so we have Victoria here watching. And hi, Victoria. It's great having you here with us. Okay. All right. So Kairos actually asked, what coding languages will be taught? Well, you want to go through it? So
again, like what Audrey said, the first
2 weeks.
2 weeks, you do, and these are the fundamentals for building your first static websites. You do HTML, you do CSS, and you do JavaScript. And they're so powerful and so important. And they're basic, like you always hear names thrown out, like, Python or Ruby, so on and so forth. But these three are so important to actually getting what you want there in the first place, to getting a web page and then being able to do what you want to do with it from then on. And then,
And I think during the first 2 weeks as well. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So these are the core things, the fundamentals of the fundamentals. The fundamentals of the fundamentals, but you will also be learning Bootstrap as well. So Bootstrap, do you call it a framework? It's a kind of like a framework or library of sorts, right?
It's kind of like a CSS library.
CSS library. So you kind of learn Bootstrap as well. So Bootstrap is I love calling it the shortcuts. So right, it's like, because HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you write it really raw. You write it from scratch, right? But then now you have Bootstrap saying, someone saying like, hey, I have a bunch of shortcuts for you already. So you can use my shortcut. So you also learn Bootstrap, but you also learn concepts like APIs and so on. Some of you guys may probably have heard of it. So so then the following 2 weeks.
Then we do React, which again is another
it's a framework.
And it is a very beautiful framework, actually, and it's very fun to use. In the beginning, because it draws on from JavaScript. So from there, like that's when you really see, oh, I'm creating something really cool, because you have all of these like pop-ups, or you have all of these added features that you can do with your app. And it's something, what we do in our second week is that we build things. We build like an Instagram clone from scratch, and that is extremely fun to do. Can be kind of like confusing at times and frustrating, because you're like, but I don't understand how this works. But you will, trust me, you will get there in the end. And I know that a lot of us really enjoyed doing React. It was a very fun framework to learn.
And then the third part we will be doing, you will learn Python. So Python as the language. So very often we say that coding languages are a medium for you to actually communicate with the computer. For us, we use Python. One of the reasons why is because it's easy to learn. It's clean, it's beautiful. It's clean, it's beautiful. And it's also a language that where it has a lot of we call it libraries, meaning that, for example, if you want to eventually delve into finance, you say, I want to build a trading bot, for example. Python libraries actually have a lot of math and finance related formulas libraries inside, which you can just immediately use it straight away, as opposed to doing or building everything from scratch. And then if you say you want to go into, when people talk about AI or data science or machine learning, interestingly enough, Python is the language where a lot of people are using it for this AI, machine learning, and data science. So as mentioned, instead of writing everything from scratch, now you have this library, kind of like a shortcut per se, to immediately use it. So which is why a lot of people are looking towards learning Python, because it really unlocks a lot of possibilities. And for us, when for the third part of the course, after learning Python, you will also learn about databases. So that's where you learn SQL. So some of you guys may have heard of SQL, even though you are not coders. Some people actually do practice SQL in their workplace. So basically, you have a database full of data. If you basically have so much data that your Microsoft Excel and your Google Sheets is not able to handle them. Then in that case, the way to handle it, for you to query data, is for you to use SQL. So you'll be learning that as well. And then finally, you'll be putting Python, SQL, everything together, and using the Flask framework. So Flask framework we call it a web development framework. So you use that to actually build the backend of of an app. So you learn how to build the front end, which is the static website, the look and feel of the website, and then the remaining 6 weeks you learn how to build the back end of the website. You merge them together, and ta-da, an app is here, an app. So that's how it works. So there are a lot of languages, and one key thing is this, right? Even after the course, Kairos, you don't need to stick to just this bunch of languages. In fact, it is very, very normal for a software developer to actually be able to adapt to other languages as well. So when your fundamentals are strong, it's easy for you to adapt and try out new languages, and it's very, very normal. 1 or 2 years in, as a software developer, as a coder, it's very normal for a developer to say that, I've been coding in 5-6 different languages because my work requires me to do that. So that is very, very normal. So don't be so fixated with a language. You are not a Python developer, you are a software developer, and just think about it, because you're a software developer means that you should at least have a certain ability to adapt to new technology and new languages.
Correct. And I know people from my bootcamp as well, like for my cohort. I know some of them are coding in C#, which is completely different to what we had learned. And so I find that so impressive. And I know a couple of people who are doing, getting into Vue.js, as opposed to React, for example, or PHP. And that's so impressive to me, because it really does show that what you learn in the bootcamp is really just the groundwork for you, and it sets up the stage for you to learn so many more languages and so many more frameworks. And I think that aspect of learning how to learn is what helps you progress in your career.
In the world of coding, it will never stop evolving. Really, literally, if you think that it will ever stop evolving, you just think about it. 5 years ago, what has tech brought to Malaysia, and compared with today, it has changed so much. And coding or the world of tech will continuously evolve. So which is why, at Next Academy, our goal is to make sure that your fundamentals are strong so that you can adapt to the ever-changing world of tech. You cannot just say, I learned coding 2 years ago and I'm obsolete right now. You cannot be that. So really, your ability is actually, the goal is to be able to adapt to new things. So guys, we were just informed that we have 8 shares already. Yay! 8 shares and 2 more left, guys. Just need to share 2 more times, and then Sandra will be giving this away.
Ta-da!
Okay, this one is quite nice, right? Sleep code. and then you guys could come and learn to code and and live up to this prophecy.
Yeah.
Make it a prophecy for you guys. And hi Lin, thanks so much for dropping by, and it's great to, if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask us. We definitely would love to be able to answer these questions for you. All right, let's go on to the next one. So Joshua Kang actually asked a very similar question. Like Joshua asked, what framework or tech should I dive into?
So it's not so much about, like Audrey said, it's not so much about the framework or what technologies to use. It's more about getting your fundamentals down. And you can start with any language, but the most important part of it is that you understand your core concepts, because then that makes you adaptable, and it means that you'll be able to use what you have learned and transform it into something for your next job, or whatever other language you're going to be using. So again, it's not really about what's the best framework, what's the best language to learn. It's more about the core concepts that you will learn in any language, and how you can use that to adapt to another language later on if you end up moving or changing.
So I think one of the biggest risks that I've seen some people is where they focus so much. It's actually really interesting to see how people learn coding. So I've seen some people who want to make sure that their fundamentals are strong, right? I learn how to code first, do it the raw way, then dive into frameworks, because frameworks are, to us, it's kind of like shortcuts, right? To make your life easier, right? Dive into frameworks, and then so on and so forth. I've also met people who don't really want to care much about the fundamentals. They just dive straight into the frameworks. The problem with diving into frameworks is that, yes, you tricked it like, a step by step. Step 1, I will do this. Step 2, I will do this. There are templates, there are frameworks. I can just follow them. But remember, things change very fast. First thing first, frameworks can lose popularity. Today, something might be very popular now. Give it another few more years, people would just go like, oh, that was so yesterday, and now we have a new thing that's coming up, and let's go towards that. And what happens when that happens, and you call yourself, oh, I'm this X framework developer, and then it just falls in popularity, then what? Are you obsolete now? So I think that is one thing you should think about. And people fall into that trap, and it's really scary, the fact that when I actually go on the internet and read up on people ask these questions because they wanted to learn to code, and there are so many people who give them, I don't want to call it false information, but to me it's not really ethical, but it's not really good to just tell people, oh, you just need to learn this framework and you're set for life. What does that mean, right? If things change, what will happen next?
Correct.
So if your fundamentals are not strong, you can't even customize the things that you want to learn, and your framework decided to say, decided for whatever reason, lose popularity, you are not going to be able to secure your own, you would not be able to evolve with the tech world as well. So I think one really key thing is think about building your fundamentals really strong. So for us, I think at Next Academy, we also always remind our students, which is why we always start off with HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Everything we make sure that the students are able to actually do it the raw way. That's the key thing. And then only introduce the shortcut way, right? If you just jump straight to the shortcut way, you would not be able to do, and really you wouldn't be able to do much beyond that. The same thing goes with so you also learn JavaScript first, then only you learn React.js. Then you also learn Python first, then only you learn Flask. So Flask is a framework. So make sure that you actually have your fundamentals before you move on to the framework. And then with the framework as well, you also need to understand the flow, the way it actually works. So when you understand how things work, right, how different concepts work, then in the future, it's easy for you to actually go to new technology, new languages, new frameworks, because, hey, you realize that, the concepts are quite similar. So I think those are very crucial things for you to think about, Joshua. Do you have anything else?
I noticed online as well that one of the top questions is, what language should I learn? And they'll go through like the year. What's the best language to learn for 2019? What's the best language to learn for 2020? And it's not the wrong question per se, but it's maybe not the ultimate focus
Yeah.
that you should have. You should be focusing more on, okay, if I pick up this language, what are the important things to learn from it, and how, and what are the key concepts that are translatable to any language that you learn, because you do have the same, you have the same like functions, for example, or like loops, so on and so forth, that will always be translatable to any other language. It's just maybe written in a different way. But as long as you know how to use them, and as long as when you change languages, you know how to write them, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, so. I agree. Like, it's really interesting to see there is like the war of languages, coding languages, and someone's going to ask, which language is the best language to learn? And then all the people who reply, and it's crazy because the way they stab each other, the way they try to put their best language, this language is the best. Then the other guy will like, why do you need to learn that language? That language is so yesterday. This other language is the best. And it's crazy because when I look at that, I'm like, wow, if I'm a beginner and I look at all these things, and I don't know where to start.
You just get scared. You're like, oh, there's so many choices. And then you get paralyzed and, oh no, I don't know which step or which direction to take.
So which is why for us, I think for us, I actually will be very frank with people when they ask me that. I just say it really depends on what you want to do, right? But one key thing is that learning to code is not really the language, right? It is learning to communicate with the computer. So it's like a kid, right? If there is English, there is BM, and there is Chinese, but we could learn all the individual characters and words, but if we cannot string them together, we cannot even communicate. So I think one key thing, which is why we always, for us, using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or Python, it's just a medium, right? It's just a medium for us to teach you the key core concepts to communicate with the computer, to do the things you want to do. But in the future, you may not be using these languages. Maybe you want to use some, I don't know, C#, Java, Elixir. There are so many languages out there. You might want to use those languages, and it's totally okay. But the key thing, you will realize that, oh, I already know how to communicate with the computer. The only difference is the language. Yeah. So you get to that point, But at the start, it's okay to just stick with one language, but you need to actually walk to the end of the journey with the one language first before you switch to a different language.
Know as much as you can, and study as much as you can about it.
Yeah. So, okay, Betty asks, hi Betty, thanks so much for this question. Betty asks, which coding platform should she use? Okay, this is interesting. I think because it's very true that a lot of people would think that, there must be a software, there must be a platform that I need to use, that I need to pay. And one interesting thing about coding is the coding community is very altruistic. They love to give everything out for free.
That's true.
Actually, it's very true.
And they give out information for free, which is so important as well, and which will help you along in your coding career, and if you join Next as well. So all you need is a laptop. Really. That's really all you need, and some form of text editor, maybe a terminal if you're gonna do backend stuff as well. But
the terminal is also inside the computer already, so it's already in your computer. You don't even need to download it separately. Even like text editors are free as well. If you don't want to use the one that's downloaded, your computer also have text editor. Everything is given to you for free. So that's the lovely part about coding. These people are so generous. It's like, oh, here you go.
Yeah, go forth and learn.
Go forth and learn. Yeah, so there is no exact coding platform, which is great, which is why you probably heard the word open source or closed source, So when we say open source, it means that it's open, it's public, it's for everyone to use and learn and to create and innovate. And that is the reason why technology or software is so crazy and changing the world so rapidly is because these things are open source, and people now have the access to all this stuff to create anything they want. And that's the beauty of, I guess, software. And she also asked if there is a lifetime software. So no, there isn't exactly a lifetime software. You don't need to, as mentioned, you don't need to pay for a lot of things because these people are really generous. But she also did say, she wants to be able to learn all aspects of coding. Do you want to be able to take that?
All aspects of coding, I think, because languages, and because code itself is always changing, it's always going to be growing and adapting. You will never know everything, but that's perfectly okay, because you will always be learning new things along the way, and you'll always be refining your craft and honing your own skills. So I don't think that there's anyone in the world who knows every single aspect about a specific language or about coding. There are very good coders. There are ones who are constantly learning. But yeah, and it's not something to be ashamed of, that you'll never know everything about coding, because just like language is always changing, or science is always changing, so is tech. So
I guess
that's something to look forward to.
I guess one key thing I could think about is as simple as this, right? Like for us, do we memorize every single word in a dictionary?
Yeah, exactly.
No, we don't, right? But we have a dictionary. That's the power of a dictionary, right? So I think that's the same thing that goes with coding. Even with language, you don't expect yourself to memorize the entire dictionary. So it's the same with coding, because it will always evolve. Just like language, right? It will always evolve. In fact, if you go down a few more every year, a few more years, you will notice that they are always adding new words in the dictionary. And the same thing goes with coding. And in fact, coding evolves even faster than language or anything else. It probably changes every 3 months, 6 months? 6 months, man. 6 months and everything changes, and you need to actually go and check out other things as well and see what have changed and update yourself with it. So this is how rapid things are changing.
And it also, I think, depends on what you're actually using, what you're actually working on. So for example, if I'm working on a website, I'm not going to need to know every single aspect of coding. I'm not going to need to know, I don't know, calculate different things, or I'm not going to need to put finance into my web app. So it's a very broad thing, but it's also specific in a way, depending on what you're actually using it for.
Yeah. All right, guys. So there is one more share left, guys. Let's just do this, man. It's just one away, and we really want to give this out. So for you who share the last one, okay, make it happen, and then we'll give this out to one of you guys. All right. Awesome. So now let's move on to the next question by Elson Lu. I can take this. He's asking, how coding for digital marketing. How is coding being used for digital marketing? I think there is a lot of opportunities there. So for me, I actually do digital marketing, and I'll share with you some of the places where coding becomes really prominent, right? So tracking. Learning how to track things is so important. How do people move from one page to another page? Which button did the person click on? All these tracking bits require you to write code. Now, right now, they don't have a lot of stuff that don't require you to write code, right? All this stuff requires you to write code to actually make it happen. And sometimes, what happens if I want to actually build very interesting, stuff on my website? For example, if you actually, if you come to my website, you'll get into this interesting coding game, right? That I cannot find any solutions out there. But once you play this coding game, and then you hit a certain level, let's just say you hit level 10, I'm going to unlock some very interesting presents for you, or very interesting coupons for you. Things like that. Very often you cannot find solutions out there, but we are able to build it, right? We are able to build that. We are able to actually figure how to actually capture attention, build games to actually generate leads, and those are very normal stuff. And not just that, right? Everything you see. In fact, your Facebook is actually, done by coding. I've also known some people who actually go to Facebook ads APIs to actually write scripts to launch ads, so that they don't need to they don't even need to go into Facebook Ad Manager to actually set up the ads manually. They just need to just launch ad with their program, and that's about it. They get the program to manage it, monitor it, and then if the results is not so good, then they will just stop it. Those things are very normal. And some of the very interesting stories I've heard is how about someone who actually, this is actually a very interesting one. So this person is trying to look for emails, right? So the first emails that he was trying to look for was emails of a bunch of companies. There is about 500, 600 companies, and he's trying to look for the generic email, the hello@something.com. Like for us, it's hello@nextacademy.com, or people may have a variation for it. So 500 websites. Do you go into each of the website one by one?
Yeah.
To actually look for the information? So what he did was that he wrote the script. He just key in, and the best part is that he doesn't even have the website's URL. He only have the company name. So what he did was that he write a script, he write a program where it will input the company name. The program will Google and look for the link that is related to the company name, and then we'll go through the different pages within the website to look for the
generic email,
emails, or whatever emails that are present in the website.
Yeah.
And he did that, and it goes through 500 websites. Can you imagine you doing it yourself one by one? It's going to take a lot of time. But what he did was that he just wrote a program to make that happen. So those are just some of the little things that people actually use coding for digital marketing, to scout for leads, to look for opportunities, to make certain, we call it, to create the stickiness of their app. Or sometimes as marketers, we may not be the ones to build the app, right? But what happens is that sometimes I still want to create some sense of excitement on the website. We can just code it out ourselves now. We don't actually need people to actually do it for us. So I think that is one of the key things where you, as a marketer, when you know how to code, you can actually dive into a lot of opportunities to create very different things. And it's a huge range, from tracking, from building interesting lead magnets, to scraping the internet for information. All these things. There is so many stuff that you can do with using coding for digital marketing. So I hope that answered your questions, Elson. Oh wow, so we have 11 shares. Make sure okay guys, so we have 11 shares. So this is a time where we are going to actually start gathering all your information. So make sure your profile is public, or else we can't see it. And if we can't see it, we won't know that it's you. We won't be able to reach out to you, and we wouldn't be able to put you through the lottery system that we are having here, right? So people, start making it public, okay? Remember to make it public. All right, so let's move on to the next one. I think, why not, before we move on to the next one, let's just talk about this very interesting project that you have built. I really like the project that you guys have built for the final project, right? I love that. Why don't you talk about that?
So we built, me and my team, we built a Chrome extension, and it was, we had never built anything, but we had never built a Chrome extension before. So it was our first time trying to create something like that. And what we created was an extension where the user can input keywords. And this is aimed at parents, usually parents with young children who are just starting out to using the computer, using the internet. So very young children, maybe like 3 years old onwards. I don't know how old kids use the computer these days, but it seems to be very young. So so we built a Chrome extension for them where the parents can input keywords for things that they don't want their children to see. So that can be anything from, cuss words, or, for example, violence that they don't want kids to see, or, things like these very controversial challenges, things like that. And what it does is the first thing is it censors the word. So all you see is like a star. The second thing it does is that it will also blur out images associated with those keywords.
Yes.
And it also it disables the links. So if you Google something, you won't be able to click on a link if it contains the keywords.
Yeah.
So, and another thing that we added in was that if the child tries to click on it, it will actually send an email to the parent, and the parent can go and view the link afterwards and be like, oh, my child has been looking at, at such and such a thing, and I should have a talk with them about this. So
yeah. I find that very interesting because this is actually a really big social problem that a lot of parents are facing. So let's just address the white elephant in the room, right? The fact is that mental health is quite a big issue, right? Yeah. And people are actually sometimes going online to look at peculiar ways to do something unpleasant to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is real, right?
Yeah.
Those things are real. So what can happen is that by using this kind of tool, parents can input keywords, that are unpleasant, okay, like suicide or how to hurt yourself, or there are so many things that parents can key it in, put it into Chrome extension. For younger kids, you definitely would be able to, so that they don't see all these images, especially when they're so young.
Yeah.
They don't interact or be exposed to all these things, not when they're this young, right? But I think one of the key things is that when the kids are looking out for all this stuff, it actually starts triggering to inform the parents that, hey, you know what, your kids are somehow, for some reason, looking at these things, and it's time to keep a lookout for it.
Yeah.
So I really like that tool because of that. I really see that there's a need for.
Yeah.
There's definitely a need for this.
One of the things we were also thinking about, two things actually. One of them was that you as a user, there may be things you don't want to look at or you don't want to see, or let's say that you're scrolling through Facebook or YouTube or something, and sometimes you don't know what's going to come up in your feed, but something does come up and you're like, oh, that's not something I want to look at. So it'll, as soon as you see that the word's been censored out, you're like, okay, I know, I won't have a look at that. And the image will be blurred out as well. So if there's anything, particularly graphic, you'd be like, okay, I you've saved yourself a lot of discomfort from that.
Yeah.
And another thing is that, especially for kids in school, for example, kids may be looking up things like, gun violence or suicide, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that could actually be something to alert the teacher about beforehand. And, it might, before that child takes a step in any one direction, you can intervene and you can be like, hey, maybe you want to have a talk with someone about this. Like, why are you looking at these sort of things? Do you have any problems at home? That kind of thing.
What's happening?
Yeah.
I think that is definitely a very interesting solution that I think people actually need, right?
Yeah.
So this is what coding can do. When you actually see a real problem out there, you are now not limited to just waiting for someone to create something or give you an innovation. You actually have the ability to say that I am going to be the one to solve this. I'm going to find a solution for this thing. And that's the power to code, right?
Yeah.
Which is the power to create. And so if you want to have the power to create, you guys know what to do. Come to Next Academy. Okay. Okay, so Leong asks, what do I need to learn to build a Chrome extension?
Oh. If you look at the Chrome developer documentation, it's all there. Like, they will actually give you a step-by-step. So all of the files that you need, and it's all in JavaScript, really. So you need to have really good grasp of JavaScript. And that's one thing that, I really got back into, because this was at the end of my, coding journey. So JavaScript was like right at the beginning. So because this was almost pure JavaScript, at least from the Chrome extension point of view, you really got to get back into it and, relearn it. And you're like, oh, I remember how to do this now. And we did, or you learn a lot more stuff as well about a language that, you maybe only didn't have much time in. So it's all in the Chrome developer apps. And we actually watched a lot of YouTube videos as well, how to create a Chrome extension, and that was quite fun. But it's actually quite simple.
Yeah. So that's the key thing, right? When the moment when you actually learn, it's one thing we need to always debunk is that just because you learn to code doesn't mean that you don't use Google, right? In fact, coders today, the most experienced coders that I've met 10 years, 20 years, I say, hey, you know what, if you're stuck at a piece of coding, do you Google? It's like, yeah, why not? So I think there are people who just go like, oh, you can't YouTube this, you can't Google this. There is no such thing, right? There is no such thing. Google is there for a reason. It's there to assist you. You don't need to memorize the whole entire dictionary, right? That's the key thing, right? If you need to find a word, you actually use the dictionary to find that word.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are some of the key things that people need to know, that it's okay, right, to find ways to do it online, right? But the key thing is you try to understand how to do it, so that you don't blindly put together a Frankenstein. Right? You actually would be able to create something of value to yourself.
And I mean, there is so much to learn. So even things that you do know, and maybe you've used it countless times before, but it just so happened that on that day you forgot the syntax for it. So, how do I do inline styling for this again? Okay, immediately Google it and you get your answer.
Especially for some people who actually needed to code like 5-6 languages, sometimes they just go like, oh gosh, which one is this? Which syntax is this? So sometimes you just clarify by Googling, and that's a very, very normal thing. Okay, guys. Hi, Ivan. Nice having you with us. One key thing is if you want to actually join in the fun to actually win this, right? If you want to join the fun to win this, remember to share this. To share this webinar to people who actually would find this interesting, right? For people who want to learn to code. So I think question number 6, right? We have the next question, which is Ash Farhan. So Ash Farhan said, if I learn to code, what are the opportunities out there that I can get into?
So many. Because just because you learn how to code, it doesn't mean that you're just going to be doing coding. Like, you could be doing so many different things with what you have. So maybe a lot of people will end up becoming, software developers. But a friend of mine, for example, has joined a tech company, but she's a junior project manager, for example. And she's learning how to, manage a team of, developers with whatever that they're building. So coding is really just the beginning, and there's such a wide range of things that you can do. Yes, you could be building apps. Maybe you're only doing the front end, for example. Maybe you're only designing web pages, or maybe you're doing user experience. You're like testing out user experience for different companies or for different websites, and you're like, oh, this should be changed because this doesn't provide, this isn't very easy or user friendly. That kind of thing. So there are a lot of prospects. Again, data science,
that's
business, a big thing.
Analyst.
Yeah.
I mean, today people talk about machine learning, AI, but I still think that it's quite in its infancy right now. More and more people are talking about data science. But you know what's interesting? I've quite a few companies who reach out and they're like, oh, you know what? I'm looking for people who have good, tech background, who knows how to code, but also have a business background. That's very interesting. So I was like, oh wow, so you're looking for someone who have business knowledge and also have tech knowledge, who also can code. That is quite a tough one, quite a tough nut to crack, I think. So one key thing that people always, I think people were like saying that, oh, I've tried it from here before and I find it very interesting because of a few things, like because we've seen that some of the students due to the fact that they have a very different background and now they can code, they have very interesting understanding or overview of a certain thing, and they're looking for these people. And very often these people will end up being, consultants, IT consultants or whatnot, in the area of transformation consultant, IT consultant. Those are some of the things that I've seen so far. So it's just unlimited, and I think traditional roles in the future, would also have elements of coding or tech in the future. In the future, accountants, maybe in the future, like if people say I'm looking for accountant, people might just walk out, I'm looking for accountant who can code.
Yeah.
Then I don't see that as foreign, right? I
Yeah.
actually see that as being really possible,
Mhm.
right? Because I've seen some roles where people actually mention traditional roles where people actually mention it and say, I'm looking for someone who does this, but also can code. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that is different. That is
Yeah.
very, very different from what, how the world is like these
Mhm.
days. So I think this has been great. Okay, so there is No Chu asks, can I learn coding if my English is not good? Yeah, can I learn coding if my English is not good?
Absolutely. Because the best thing about it is you don't have to write full sentences if you don't want to. So it's all just about, a lot of coding is in English, but it's also just being able to understand why this does this.
Yeah.
It's not,
I used to have this Japanese guy who barely speaks a sentence of English, and everywhere he goes to, he will bring a dictionary, a translation dictionary, and he is the most hardworking person I've ever met. And what he did is that he just translates the things that he was going through. So yes, right. While coding looks pretty similar to English when you're learning, to code, it's usually the concepts. It's usually understanding the concept. So yes, there are people just like the Japanese guy. He turned out to be a really good coder. He can code, right? He can code really, really well. But when it comes to learning the concepts, it took him a little bit of time because he needed, when the mentors are teaching in English, so it was very normal where the mentors are, speaking in English, and he actually recorded the entire thing that the mentor spoke about, and he actually go back and re-listen it again, and take the dictionary and translate the stuff that the mentor actually spoke about. When you understand the concepts, right? The concepts can be delivered in English, Malay, Chinese, or any other languages. It's no problem. Then writing the code is not going to be a problem, but the concepts is the one that you need to understand. So it's not about your English is good or not good. It's the question is, do you understand the concepts or not? And the concepts can be conveyed in many different languages, and it's totally fine. So yeah, and I think maybe sometimes there might be a bit of difficulty right now because a lot of resources out there are in English. Like the people who talk about how to do this or talk about the concepts, usually they convey it in English, which is why sometimes people may struggle. But I think if those concepts can be spoke about in a different language, then it should be fine. It should be no problem.
In my class, I know for sure there were a few people whose English maybe or they couldn't understand something, so they would Google things in Chinese.
Yeah.
And they'd be able to understand things, and then they would be able to implement it using whatever language they were using. So
yeah,
there's always ways around it. You don't have to be amazing in English to be able to code.
Yeah, so I hope that helps, Nochu, I hope that helps answer your question. I think, learning, I salute you because, even though you say that your English is not really, not that good, but it's amazing that you're taking your first step to learn. It's amazing that you're actually, for you to write the question here, I think your English is perfectly fine. So I think, sometimes it's just about putting, just like the Japanese guy, right? He really had the heart to learn. And he really go all out, and when the mentors was teaching or when he's asking questions, he actually recorded it down, re-listened to it again. He actually asked about, hey, what are we learning tomorrow? So tonight he would actually research on it, read up on it, and try certain things. So when tomorrow he meets the mentors, he will have very specific questions. That was the effort. That was the level or the kind of commitment and effort he's willing to put in so that he can learn to code well. So the question for everyone is, if he can do it, why not us? We can do it too, right? The only question is, do we want to do it or not? Yeah, and that's always the struggle. So I think let's go on to the last thing. How do you see, coding for the future?
For the future, I think that it's definitely going to be something that everyone at some point everyone is going to learn at least some aspect of coding, because I feel like we are in the tech age, and things are only going to become even more tech focused from here on. So I think that, for example, even in law firms, things are starting to become more automated, and you might eventually need lawyers who are able to code, or your admin staff might need to be able to code in order to be able to put everything in a database, so on and so forth. So, or to automate things that are very procedural. So definitely I think that coding is going to, or like tech itself it's going to infiltrate every aspect in every industry in some way. It already does in some ways. So yeah, I think it's only going to become even more crucial to learn how to code from here on.
I think it's going to be really exciting to see what's going to be happening in the future. For me, coding for the future, what will happen in the future? The best case scenario I could think of is that a lot of mundane, repetitive work would be automated, so that human beings are able to live out to their full potential. That's how I want to think about it. So you don't need to do leave the mundane stuff to the computers, right? And right now in the future, when AI comes in as well, AI is going to help assist you in making decisions as well. So what do we do as a human being? For us, we would be able to actually exercise our decision making, our creativity, our ability to actually do more with a robot or with AI assisting us to reach the goal that we want to get to. So for me, I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. Sometimes some people will see this as Armageddon, something that's going to happen. Every single thing, every single technology, every single thing out there, you can use it. The technology itself is not evil. You can use it for good, or you can use it for bad.
Correct.
And for me, I just want to look at it positively. Yes, things will be replaced, things will be automated. But that doesn't stop us from progressing. And I do hope that people will be able to do more, live out to their fullest potential, and be able to share with each other on the things that they could do as well. So that is definitely exciting for me.
Yeah, and you can even some people will think that it is Armageddon, but think of all the good things that it can do. For example, for the environment. For example, there are different ways that you can implement your tech knowledge in order to positively impact the environment. Or what about even in medicine as well, and in healthcare. So I definitely think that there are so many ways that it can positively impact the world, and people shouldn't be scared about it. They should just try and understand it. So you should all learn how to code, because then you'll be able to grasp why it's so important.
I think coding is just a tool for you to create stuff. And when you have this tool to create stuff, you have the ability to actually use your creativity to do anything you want. And I think that's very exciting, because in everyone's head, in everyone's mind, there's always a solution to really big problems out there. And it's the only thing that's holding you back is very likely you just don't really have the ability to make it into a reality. But I think with the power to code, I've seen so many people changing an idea, turning an idea into an actual thing, actual thing that's happening out there. And I think that's very exciting. So and that's why I think at Next Academy, I see a lot of dreamers, I see a lot of doers, people who dream big, people who want to do things, people who want to build stuff, people who want to create stuff. And which is why it's exciting, because you meet a lot of like-minded people here, gathered in a single space, and then everyone talk about building things, creating things, and that itself is exciting. It's just about meeting people, learning together, and throwing big ideas at each other. And I think I would love to see more of that. And if you are one of these people who are doers, who are creators, who are dreamers, I think this is a space where you could actually very well come here and go wild with your imagination.
That's true.
don't just see it as a place just to learn to code. No, I don't see it as a space to learn to code, get the skill and say bye-bye. No, it's really much more than that. It's a space where you can dream.
And it's not just, a bunch of like nerds. Although everyone is, a nerd here, but it's not just the old way of thinking about it that everyone's like, oh yeah, the computer,
No.
like this and focused. But people, because they come from all sorts of backgrounds, they're so creative and they have so many experiences that it's not, your stereotypical nerd with glasses. Although some of us might wear glasses, like from that you see on cartoons. Like we say like-minded people, but they're not all the same. We're not all a cookie cutter, cookie cutter mold.
It's so different these days, right? In the future is where a lot of people would know how to code and they can be musicians. They can be musicians, artists, writers, celebrities, right? Singers, right? Lawyers, waiters. We have waiters, really. What else do we have, right? We have people who are in business, engineering, dentistry, pharmacies, all sorts of background. And are you saying that we also have gamers? Okay, we also have gamers. Last time we had this guy who is like this gamer. He was one of the top StarCraft gamer in Malaysia.
Wow.
And learning how to code, right? We have all sorts of people. And who are you to say that they are nerds? They are not. They are like one of the coolest people that I've met, and they are going out there to slay the world with their coding skills. We have DJs as well. 2 DJs so far.
Oh, really?
2 or 3 DJs. Okay, learning to code, and that is exciting. I think that's pretty much it. Do we have anything else? Oh, okay.
Wow.
So we actually, we have the announcement right now. Do you want to be the one announcing it?
Okay.
Yeah. Who would be the winner? So we put through the lottery of all the people who actually shared this post, and my team actually put through a lottery, and now we have a special name. Are you guys ready?
So this cool T-shirt is Kairos. Kairos sells syrup.
Kairos sells syrup. Okay, Kairos, so yay, you won this. Okay. So what will happen is that we are going to PM you in a bit. We're going to private message you and going to get information of you, like your shirt size, how we're going to send this to you, or how you're going to get this. And yeah, thank you so much for participating, and thank you so much for asking the question just now. Definitely excited to see you around. So guys, all you people who are on Instagram as well as on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. It has been really, really fun with you guys, and do stay tuned for the next episode of this coding coding session, where I'm going to invite another alumni, and the other alumni is going to share about their experience and their background and what they see about coding. So before we end this, do you have one key advice to people who wants to learn to code?
This one is specifically for girls. So I mean, it's for everyone, but also for girls who want to learn how to code, or are thinking about it and thinking about that next step. So you are not, we're not all the same kind of people. Like, don't think about it as it's that nerd in school who, pulled their pants up to here and wore glasses and got bullied all the time. Literally, some of the coolest people that I know who can code so well are girls. One of the best coders that I know is also a girl. And so it really is possible and for girls to code. There's absolutely no difference at all between a guy and a girl coding. Like, absolutely no difference. Just maybe the way that we treat or that we think coders are, generally men. But I really encourage girls to learn how to code, just because it's super cool and it's also extremely fun, and you never know, you might find that you have a real aptitude for it and a real passion for it. So yeah, I encourage all girls out there to enter the tech scene in a little way
and give it a try. We need people of different backgrounds, different gender, to come together, because coding, when you're creating something, because coding is about creating something, when you're creating something, it should not be, it should not be created from just one perspective. It should be created from all different perspectives, and that is what makes the product interesting. That's what makes the product fun. When you're building an app, who's going to be using it?
Yeah.
It's all the users out there who will be using it. Another person from a different background, another person from a different gender. And that diversity, when you have a bunch of creators or coders who are diverse, they bring in very interesting perspective to when they come to building products that matters and products that work. So guys, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for staying tuned with us all the way up, till now. I don't know what's the time now, but yeah, stay tuned and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.